Hello, everyone, to another episode of Stu and the Nunn, episode 331, after being gone for like the last 4 weeks. So I'm really glad that I'm back. And of course, joined with my good friend, guest co-host, multiple time guest, and all-around badass dude, Mr. Wolf. How you doing, Wolf?
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me back.
The man with the golden microphone, for sure. But yeah, so we are back. I really apologize for being away. Did a little family road trip for the last 3 weeks, all up and down the East Coast, visiting very good friends, a lot of family, grandbaby, and all kind of stuff. So I was in multiple states, and it was just hard to I brought my mobile studio with me, my little mobile kit, but it was just every night there was something, you're visiting, you're spending time. It was just hard to peel it away, find good internet, so on and so forth. So I good intentions, but never happened. So, but we're back, and thank you, Wolf, for joining me tonight, and let me kick this back off. But yeah, so we missed a lot in the last 4 weeks. There's a ton to get into. Some of the things you've been talking about. So unless you're something you want to get into about talking about what you've been up to and stuff, let's get into some of that. And you've been in Florida yourself. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all. Obviously, that could be something we chat about too.
Yeah, I went down and dealt with some veterans issues and stuff down in Mar-a-Lago. Had a chance to go down and meet with the hoi polloi down there and some of the folks that I work with at Veterans Affairs. Had a great time. Got a chance to watch the president walk by as he was cheering on a whole bunch of people and crossing the area. Didn't get a chance to talk with him, of course, but it was quite a crowd there. And had a great visit down there. So, and that's been the highlight of the last, say, 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've been there before. I've yet to. I've had a number of friends that have been there, but I haven't yet to cross the threshold there in Mar-a-Lago.
We got to go up in the tower, the vaunted tower up there, high above the place. It's, impressive view. As flat as Florida is, anything that's, 80, 90 feet up in the air makes quite a view, and they definitely had that.
Yeah, that's I imagine not everyone that comes there gets that opportunity to go up in the tower for sure. So that had to be something. And was it? I mean, it was kind of a veterans kind of. Was it a fundraiser or really an awareness thing of just bringing?
C3 501c3 that I'm affiliated with had a meeting there and hosted a dinner, and basically we discussed some of the things that we are looking at moving into a hopeful new regime coming up in November, and some of the things that we see going on with the veteran space, and what we would like to see changed and how we would approach making those changes given the opportunity to do so.
Yeah, that's.
And,
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
and one other thing I would mention that I had an opportunity to do is a couple of Ukrainian groups have approached me about helping them develop a plan to put in place a similar group, the Veterans Affairs, the Veterans Ministry in Ukraine. And that's been a wild opportunity to form basically a whole new cabinet position and ministry for the government over there in the midst of a war. It would be like trying to start up Veterans Affairs here, in the middle of, Afghanistan or Iraq.
The wouldn't some kind of consider it a little premature to be doing that right now in the middle of a war?
They've got several 100,000 veterans already that are unable to keep fighting. So they've got some kind of medical problem, family problem, whatever it is, that they are no longer at the front. So they're no longer serving or can serve. So they've got to do something to further helping their veterans.
So, I mean, we've been sending a lot of money over there, billions and billions, and that's becoming a hot topic. Should that, Veteran Affairs is going to run off of government money to provide these benefits. I'm just wondering, would they direct those funds to help the veteran thing, or would they be directing those funds to the war effort?
The war that goes to the war effort. As you know, funds that are provided for them don't necessarily mean cash handouts. Here's like we did with Iran. We're going to ship a bag of helicopter full of cash over there. Basically, what it says is we're going to allocate $100 million worth of aid to you, or 50 billion, or whatever that number is. So we say, okay, Raytheon, okay, Boeing, okay, whoever, here's a check. Give them that much worth of credit for whatever they need, or whatever suppliers.
Right.
Preponderance of it goes that way, not 100% of it.
Okay.
So they wouldn't be able to take that cash and say, okay, we're not going to, help the war front guy. We're going to give it to the veteran.
I'm asking because I was thinking about when I was in Afghanistan, excuse me, in 2006, 2007, I was advising, working embedded with the Afghan army, and I was advising their essentially what we'd call a battalion sergeant major, and I got orders from on high was to help them set up NCOPD and NCO counseling and all that stuff. Like, we're just trying to get the NCOs to quit raping the soldiers and stealing gas. Like, they're not quite there yet. And that was a problem during that time, is from the very high, from ISAF on down, was trying to implement, 200 plus years of maturity of a military, and trying to shove that down,
Yep.
The throats of people that are barely out of the Stone Age, and make them like us overnight. And people were marking that as a sign of, well, that's success if we can get them to have NCOPD and counseling sessions and this kind of stuff. Like, they kind of kill each other because of what tribe they're from. They're not quite there yet our leaders today, even though they all study history and the war colleges and stuff like that, obviously forgot about the parts of how our military started out. It really did not start out picture perfect itself, and so that's what I asked, is trying to implement a VA. Not that Ukraine's a new country, they've been around for a long time, but is it the right time to do it? I was just curious.
Well, part of my thing is to make them not make the same mistakes we did, as you kind of alluded to. So they don't need to build 1,500 hospitals. They don't need to go the DEI route and do all that stuff, which a lot of people that made presentations to them were saying. I will agree that, yes, they need to pay particular attention to women's health, which was something that took us many decades and generations to do well or better at the VA. And they have people making presentations on COPD and, the benefits of, smoking weed for veterans over there. And I'm like, why are we wasting our time on this kind of stuff? Where's this going to go? No, get them some benefits, get them some help, focus on, prosthetics, focus on brain injuries and PTS and that kind of stuff, which is not in the general populace for the most part, and make that a key component of helping veterans, and you're good. That's a good start.
Yeah. You were, when you during the Trump administration, you served part of that time in the VA. And so I heard an interesting story. I know we have a couple of topics on tonight, but when you mentioned that, it made me think of the big controversy today, right? Well, not today, it's been going on for a while, but it appears that I guess several months ago, the VA gave out several, I guess, millions or something in bonuses to executives.
$11 million.
Yeah, it's about 110 executives, anywhere running from about $29,000 to $100,000 bonuses, and they're having a hard time getting it back. So it was this administration that gave them out, right? It wasn't the previous administration. Why? When I heard that tonight, I was watching the news. Why are they trying to pull it back? What pressure did they feel after this administration gave the bonuses? Did they think, oh, that was the wrong move, we should take it back? Whether they deserved it or not, you give someone a bonus. Typically, it's not just, hey, I'll give it. There's got to be, even in the government, like tangible reasons, this and that, whatever. But you gave them a bonus, now trying to take it back. Why would they? What's the motivation to take them back?
According to what I understand from this, the process in order to allocate and distribute the bonuses didn't go through a completely normal adjudicated process. HR and a couple of other groups didn't have a chance to review and put their stamp of approval on it and say, yes, go forth and do good things. I think the bonuses were excessive. They go out to anybody that's basically an SES and above. Political appointees are not eligible for those bonuses, even though they may be an SES or above. And this is something that an executive that's already clearing 200 grand is getting on top of their salary,
right?
From your taxes.
And look,
I don't think they need it.
Some people, bring skills and provide services and experience and leadership. That's why you pay them well. That's why you pay executives well, because you want the most qualified there. And if you want to attract them, you have to pay them comparable. So I get that. But, I can see why they'd want to. I can see why they shouldn't have paid the bonuses in the first place. I would imagine bonuses are typically paid when someone goes above and beyond. They have a goal, right? It's what I do in my civilian jobs and all that stuff. You pay bonuses because you don't get paid a bonus because you did your job. That's what you get a paycheck for. You get a bonus because you brought in more business. You accomplished something that was outside your normal duties expected of you, whatever it may be. That's what I mean. Like, you're typically something tangible. But when I look at the VA, and I know not one VA represents them all, and I know there's a lot of bad ones, and I hear there's a couple good ones. But I mean, it's definitely, when people think of the VA, they don't think top-notch care, right? That stereotype is there for a reason. So I try to just question, how did someone get a bonus? Was it an executive administrator of a good VA that graded on a curve? They look excellent, but in all reality, they're just running a good VA. But compared to the other crappy ones, they look like they're rock stars. I mean, what would they have done to even?
It's a very contentious process, and it's very incestuous, I would say, because
it's got to be a good old boy system, like nobody's.
It's a very good old boy system on this, and they definitely have to play their favorites. Time to time, they might give somebody a bonus that, okay, here, we'll give you a bone, but don't come back asking for more next time. And then plenty of others, they just plain old block out just because. I've seen it in action. I've had to review some of they're based on fitness reports of their style, and I've had to read some of them. And you could get me started on this stuff all night long. This is a whole show by itself.
Yeah.
But the big stickler on this is that $11 million that was given out in bonuses was supposed to go for recruiting and getting new and additional employees into the VA, not for executive bonuses.
Yeah. And they need them, because I know there's a lot of openings and holes and things like that. But
well, okay, you just opened that can of worms. When I left the VA, there were approximately 375,000 employees in the agency.
It's the largest agency in the federal government, right?
The only two that are bigger are DOD DoD is much
Yeah,
bigger.
I mean,
And,
civilian, not military agency, not
right,
DOT.
non-military, the largest
Civilian
non-military.
agency, I think it's the largest, isn't it?
Well, the other one is the post office, and I know that it's
Yeah, it's
you know,
quasi-government. Yeah,
quasi,
yeah,
but they are a government agency and they are bigger.
yeah.
So, but anyway, now they're up over 434,000 employees.
That's,
And when I was there,
Sergeant
we
Major
used
D is listening. I mean, Sergeant Major, I would think that means they're giving better care now. So I don't know. Maybe just haven't given them the chance. Uh,
I
like,
know that they were always beating us up because we weren't employing enough people because we had so many openings. The thing was, oh, you've got 40,000 openings. You're definitely not taking care of veterans if you got that many openings. Well, crap. You'll never be zero. It is impossible to be zero.
right. The
In
problem
fact,
with the VA, in Troy's opinion, is not that they can't hire enough people. It's that they don't fire the people they need to fire. Right. You know,
accountability is the law, but they don't follow the law.
right. President Trump tried to put some of that in play when he was in administration, and he did to some degree of success. But yeah, it's like bad. It's like teachers. I mean, I'll just say it, right? There are a lot of good teachers out there, but being a teacher, there's no career that makes you above the law, makes you look at priests, look at military, look at cops. There's bad ones everywhere. And they're bad teachers, but they get tenured and they get in there and you can't get rid of them. And they're still influencing and infecting the heads of our children and young adults. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But I mean, teachers down to the elementary level, there's some that need to retire, need to be gone. You can't get rid of them. There's doctors that way too. In the civilian world, that can usually flush itself out with malpractice suits and this and that and whatever. But unfortunately, the joke is, what do you call it? A guy who graduates the bottom of his doctor class. It isn't doctor anymore; it's VA doctor. Right. So, but anyways, yeah. So that is just it's. I heard the bonus thing too, and I was like, if they were providing this crazy care, doing things. Vets were in and out. They were healed the first time. They weren't going in to get a mole removed, and it looks like they just had a lung removed instead because of the scar. You know, if they were doing that kind of stuff and they were being looked at as an example of how medical care should be done, then I would see the reason for bonuses. But yeah. So you worked there, so that's all I wanted to ask. And I figured you had that inside in track. But hey, so something else you have inside track on, as do I, but we're going to talk about and kind of going to the other end of the spectrum from the VA and our veterans to those that a lot of become veterans at one day, but not always. But it's kind of a stepping stone, and that is the Boy Scouts of America. And they just have announced, they did a couple years ago. I wasn't, full disclosure, I was a scout leader for many years. I am no longer personally involved with scouts. I'm a father of an Eagle Scout. My wife is still involved with scouting. But, so I've been involved a long time. I've helped out with lots of Eagle projects. But, a couple years ago, they started allowing girls in. And that was pretty controversial and that kind of thing. And that made a big impact. They've had a lot of lawsuits. They've had a lot of money issues, and we can talk about that. But now they have come out and announced, I think starting next year, to help the head of scouting came from Leidos, I believe. And he has now come in and to help, with the woke generation and the allowing of girls in there is no longer going to call it Boy Scouts of America, BSA, what it's always been known, that Florida Lee's always been known as. It's now going to be called Scouting America.
Sounds like a really bad program starring Charles Kuralt on CBS Sunday Morning, Scouting America.
That's actually pretty good. That would sound like a show they would do, right? Where they would just go around and see people and see the land.
Yeah. Exactly right.
So what are your thoughts on this? I know you were just on the air. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that's all right. I was on Bellevia's show just the other day talking about this. And for your listeners' benefit, I'm an Eagle Scout. My brother was an Eagle Scout. My father was a Scoutmaster for a number of years. I was a commissioner in my mid-20s in a different district. I've counseled, done merit badge courses, all that stuff for decades. And right now, I'm at the threshold of renouncing my Eagle Award. But as I told David the other day, I'm going to hold on to it for now as sort of a token of what used to be and the way we were. And this is, another going broke, getting woke attempt, last ditch attempt. And I went into the numbers of why they're trying to do this, what it appears to be. And I can repeat them here if you need them. But this, again, they're trying a last ditch attempt to try and raise their numbers. And I don't think it's going to succeed.
Yeah, I mean, the girl. I mean, here's a couple things. Let me throw some facts out to some people. The Girl Scouts of America absolutely hated this move when they did it because they saw it as a move on their membership, right? So, a big gripe from many in the Girl Scout organization was that young girls, weren't the home ec taking home cook home and clean kind of children that they had way back when, right? And they wanted to do more stuff, and they're more than capable of doing more stuff, right? They're capable of rock climbing and shooting and doing things like that stuff, right? And they want to do that, but the problem is, and I'll call it like I see it, and some may disagree with me, but a lot of the leaders in Girl Scout units, right, were moms, were women. Obviously, you're not going to have a lot of men in there, and a lot of them weren't keen on camping and hiking and stuff. And I know there are some that are. There's women in there that could kick my ass all day, twice on Sunday. But let's just be honest and call it what it is. A lot of them didn't. They were doing it. They liked making home crafts. They liked doing this kind of stuff. And I can say all this one because I know about the Girl Scouts. My wife was a Girl Scout, and that is now a leader in the Boy Scouts, right? She was against this from the get-go. And it's funny, they thought that she would be all for it. She's a woman. And she's like, no, they don't belong with these boys. These boys need men. They need men mentorship. They need that kind of guidance. They don't need the distractions of mental and physical and everything else of having girls mixed in. But they brought these girls in. The Girl Scouts of America were ticked off because it cut into their membership, and they marketed it to, hey, come do all this stuff and do what boys do, and they built on that, right? And this was before the boys started turning into girls and being better girls than girls are, which is what's happening in our society today. So
I think it's toxic masculinity that that basically they're saying the Boy Scouts built toxic men.
Right. The funny thing is what they've ignored is there's a part of Boy Scouts of America as a national organization called Venture Scouts. And Venture Scouts is a co-ed scouting group. They've always had co-ed scouting. It's called Venture Scouts. And they range the age date. It goes a little bit different. I want to say it starts around 13 or 14. I could be wrong. And it goes to about 21. I think it goes to 21, a little bit farther than Boy Scouts, which ends at 18. Right. And it's boys and girls doing stuff together. When they have the National Jamboree, there's Venture Scouts there. There's awards, there's guidance, they've got their own badges, they've got all that stuff. And it was meant for girls to do stuff with boys, and they did stuff that way. Maybe it wasn't as popular, wasn't as marketed or whatever, but it's been there the whole time. So for the boys to bring girls in was attacking and cutting after the Girl Scouts and putting their financial future at risk. Again, the Boy Scouts only did it because when let's roll it back even farther. They allowed homosexual scout leaders. The Mormon Church, the LDS, said no way. And I want to say the numbers, and I'm probably way low. But I want to say it was like 70 or 80,000 scouts, but I think it was way lower than that. I think that's way lower number than what it really was. I just don't know off the top of my head. They pulled them out overnight, and they said the Mormon Church said we're pulling all because Mormon churches used to sponsor scout troops.
They were a large percentage of the troops.
Right. They sponsored cutbacks and scout troops all across this country. The churches would host them and be there, and be responsible for them. They pulled them all out, started their own scouting program, and put them all into there. So that was a large chunk of membership dues and dollars and stuff that vaporized instantly because they allowed homosexual scout leaders in. They said, no, we're not going to allow it against our beliefs, right? Well, regardless of what you think about it. Then you put on there all the sexual abuse scandals and all that other kind of stuff. Some valid. I'll be honest, some is not valid. I know for sure through different means that there are ones that weren't. But some were valid, and those lawsuits and that kind of stuff. The Boy Scouts of America did not stay on top of that. They did not police it up. They did not, they're not a religious organization. Some of those may put it under the rug, but the Boy Scouts did not go after it and aggressively deal with those kind of issues. And all those lawsuits cost them a lot. lost the LDS church, the Mormon church cost them a ton. That where they had to get clientele from somewhere, they went after the Girl Scouts, and they brought them in. Now they've went after where you have to they've made they made a new badge for that's essentially is like a DEI badge. That's now an Eagle required badge. I think that went into effect last year, the year before. And now they're changing the name to Scouting America. They're trying to wash the Girl Scouts of America off the face of the earth.
They're trying to be more inclusive, as they say. But I don't get this. I don't know how it was when you were in Scouts, but when I was in, we were the most inclusive group in the entire city. We had every type of boy in our Scout troop, from the jocks to the dweebs to the nerds to the the shy, the outgoing. We had everybody in the troop.
Which one were you?
Me? I was that sort of in between. I was, wrestler, soccer player, and, National Honor Society type, that kind of thing. So I was kind of in the middle.
I should have known you were an Eagle Scout. That makes sense. Yeah.
But it was, where else? I, as I said the other night, I had the preponderance of the formative years in the Scouts. I spent some summers more time in a tent than I did in a bed. Yeah. Between all the jamborees, all the campouts, all the activities that we did, the summer camps, I spent more time in a tent and gladly did so. And it was a future indicator of who a leader is going to be. If you were an Eagle Scout, you were automatically assumed to be some kind of a leadership potential.
I got a story for that in a second on a personal note, but I'll tell you, you mentioned it as about being all inclusive. I say today, I've been saying it for a long time, and there's someone listening to us now that have heard me say it personally. Right. Any of us in the served in the military will know when they went after the whole, we're going to go after white supremacists and there's all this racism in the military and all this kind of stuff. We're going to change military base names, blah, blah, blah. I've always told people, you will not find a more inclusive and diverse organization on this planet than the U.S. military. There is not, I don't care what branch of the military it is. You're not going to find one that brings in a homeboy from Compton and a redneck from Alabama and a hockey player from Wisconsin and even a Canadian, right? In honor of Toby, right? All these dudes together, or dudes and girls or whatever, into a single, tight, cohesive, small unit that has to operate and function under a lot of stress and sometimes have their lives depend on each other and save each other's lives. You will not find that. And I still challenge anyone to tell me an organization that brings such a wide, diverse group together. Well, before you even get in the military, you're right. The scouting is like that. Now, scouting is going to be regional. It's going to be in your town. It's going to be in your school district, neighborhood, pretty much. But as diverse as that is what you're going to have in that Cub Pack or that scout troop. Are kids of all races, right? Whatever they are, height, size, background, sports ability, geek ability, no matter what it is, and they'll come together and they're going to learn how to tie knots, and they're going to learn how to build fires, and they're going to learn how to build derby cars, and they're going to learn how to sell and how to communicate with people and plan a project, and they're all going to help each other out. Like you said, it is a very diverse group that brings people together, and unfortunately, people have taken advantage of that, right? Grown adults have used that as adults do, whether they're men of the cloth or women of the classroom, because there seems to be a crap load of them lately that are abusing young boys, right? There's no one is immune to this, and they took advantage of it because they're human and they're fallible, and they take advantage of other people of their position. But scouting has allowed this to happen, and now they are essentially attacking their sister organization, and even more so now they're about to alienate more, like yourself. And I hope you don't toss your Eagle badge over the bridge or anything like that, because I think it serves as a record of how scouting used to be, and you should be damn well proud of that.
You're absolutely correct, and I'm holding on to it for now. I'm not renouncing it yet, but at the opportune moment, should it go south, I will in a heartbeat, because I would rather, reserve my feelings and my memories of what it used to be than try and support something that has absolutely zero resemblance to what we grew up with. And I'm not some fog of memory from back then, but what the true values, Judeo-Christian American, strong, strong self-ability, strong self-worth values that we characterized in the Scouts back then.
Well,
It's
again,
gone.
you don't support it now. That's fine. I mean, look, I'll be honest. I mean, I'd have a hard time if I had a young son right now that wanted to join the military for me to say that's the path you should take. Right. As much as I love the U.S. Army and as much as good things it's done in my life, and I owe all the things I've done in my civilian life to the upbringing I had in the U.S. military, I would have a hard time in what I've seen today and how today's military is being run and led to say a young man or woman that should be the path they take. I think there's other vocational and jobs and careers they could take that would teach a lot of those same aspects. It may take a little bit longer because they're not going to get introduced at the speed and pace that the military would do things. But and I love the U.S. Army. I mean, the U.S. Army could go. They could change from their current multicam to multi pink and whatever. I don't care. And issue out dildos to every single soldier with their weapon, whatever. I'll still love the military that I knew and that I was raised in, and then I served alongside and had people serve alongside with me and lose their life in. That may mean I don't ever support them because I can't support where they're going. And I agree, you may not be able to support the Scouts, but you can definitely be proud of the time that you put in and what the Scouts did for you.
Yep, 100%. I agree with that.
Yeah, I would hate to see you do that because they're not worth doing that. I know you have too good of memories. I know my son does, and that's what I want to hit on real quick because you mentioned what being an Eagle Scout, what it is. I literally was texting with him today, my youngest, who's an Eagle Scout, and he's going to school. He's got about another year left out, and going to college, and he's got this job, and he's working with an event company and a catering company and all this kind of stuff, and he's doing great. And it's good looking young man, and he's in a tourist hotspot, and he got this job a couple weeks ago because someone recommended him, and he was talking to his boss last night at this event he's making really good money at, and they were talking about their hiring standards because these people don't, they just don't hire whoever. And the quote he told my son was, I know I needed somebody. We needed some people for this big event. I looked at your resume, and at the bottom, I saw you were an Eagle Scout. He said, that's all I needed to know. And he told me, he said, I just told you to show up. And my son's been knocking it out of the park. And anyone listening that knows him, that would not surprise him. But, Dave himself even and congratulated him when he did a little video for him when he got his Eagle ceremony. But, the guy told him, he said, I saw that. The guy used to be an Eagle Scout himself. And he said, I saw that and knew, hey, just show up. We'll train you in everything we need to do. It was like 2 days before the event, hired him right there. And they've already given him a raise. And he's just crushing it. But it was because he had Eagle Scout on that resume.
One of the very first job offers that I had coming out of college was in Colorado Springs. It was for a recruiting company based down in Garden of the Gods. And the gentleman that ran the company, that owned the company, offered me a job. And he said, I don't need anything else on your resume other than Eagle Scout. That's all I needed to know. When can you start? And I didn't end up accepting it because it was primarily commission-based. And this was back in 1986. And I thought it would be just too difficult, in a small town like Colorado Springs to try and make a living, recruiting for companies.
Right.
Tough job.
I mean, my son got accepted he got denied the first time when he applied. And then that was the year when he got his Eagle awarded. So he went back and revised it because he just got it awarded, put that back on it, reapplied. They accepted him. I mean, there's a degree with it. Now, you and I were talking the other day in an internal chat that not every Eagle project is held to the same standard, and some are definitely some troops think they are just Eagle factories, and their whole reason of existence is just turn boys out as Eagle Scouts regardless. You do no one a favor, and I think someone compared it to like giving out the Ranger tab, right? For the most part, you have to, whether it's Ranger tab, Sapper, Special Forces, no matter what, any of those schools or things you earn, Pathfinder, this and that, Jump Master School, you have to meet a standard. Do some things change? Do some people lower the standard for this or that? Yeah, maybe they do a little bit for a certain thing, maybe a personal connection. But for the most part, there's a standard. And I can tell you from the jump master perspective, right? You could, on your last day of jump master, last 2 days, one day you're the jump master, the next day you're the jumper. And I saw a guy who did his jump master duties. He was done. The next day he had to show up and just jump for someone else who's doing their door activities in the aircraft. And the guy got celebrated, got hammered, and missed JMPI and pre-jump. And he did not make jump mat. And that dude I felt so bad for him, but the black hats were like, that is the standard. He had to be there until graduation day. All he had to do was fall out of an aircraft, and he overslept, drunk, and missed. And they held him to it, right? But that's the difference between you earning something and just checking the box and getting boxing through it. So there's some young men out there and older men, just like those that have done things in the military. They know whether they've earned it or not. But unfortunately, you see it, whether it's a military badge or an Eagle Scout on a resume, and you have to just assume that they went through all the extremes to get that.
Can I throw some figures out for you that proves what you're saying?
Yeah.
1973 was the nadir of Boy Scouts. 4 million members in 1973. There were 48,000 Eagle awarded that year. All right, right around 1%. Okay, or so, or even less, 0.1%, I think it is. So very, very low number. 2019, the latest I can get to, there were around 800,000 scouts. All right, and they gave out 53,000
Eagle Scouts. Right. Mm-hmm. I think it's one in 14 get there. 1 in 14 scouts get there on average. It's something like that as a number, is what we've always said. And I've had young men that we thought for sure, watching them grow up in Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts, were going to be Eagle Scouts. But I used to tell these boys all the time, right? When you get into high school, you better get, as soon as you get to life and you can work on that Eagle project, you better get on it. Because if you think I've got 3 years, 4 years till I'm 18, what you don't have yet is girlfriends, work, crazy school studies, SAT, ACTs, more work, making money, and chasing girls. And before you know it, you're 17, you don't have an Eagle project figured out, and you're scrambling, and you spent all that time and it just vaporizes. Or you just quit showing in sports too, right? Other activities, all that stuff. And you just quit showing up. And so many of them I've seen could make it. And a lot of them I've talked to afterwards regret it to this day. Themselves. They did not knuckle down and get it done because they looked back. They don't see it at the time, right? The young men, we were all that way, right? Young men and women, you're blinded by what's in front of you and what you think is important in life. And you think, just scouting, whatever. And you could tell them, but some people just have to see it and have a lot of regret later on in life when they look back, go, I could have done that. I mean, I have buddies of mine, man, that when I retired out of the Army, they got out at 5-6 years and barely got out, if I could, some of them. And when they congratulate me on retirement, I'm like, dude, I can't believe I would have stayed. I'd be retiring with you now. I could have done that. I'm like, that's easier said now than 15 years ago.
Yep. When I was growing up at that age, one of the senior commissioners of our council, when I was growing up, he was the owner of the sporting goods store. Earl Funk owned the only sporting goods store in the whole town, and he lived right behind where I worked. And every day when I took stuff out to the trash or was doing an errand out there, I'd see him out there, and he'd come out and said, "How's that Eagle project coming? Did you get that latest merit badge?" And he'd do it every single time for 4 years working out there. He would come out and say something to me. And that's on top of my dad and the others, constantly reminding me, hey, you need to do this, need to be doing that. And he was the one that I had, because of his encouragement and badgering, I guess you could say. Because of that, I had him read my Charge of the Eagle when I finally got it. And as a matter of fact, when I was awarded my Eagle, I earned my Eagle in March, turned 18 in May, went to basic training, came back, and then they awarded me my Eagle.
Yeah, if they can't get the ceremony, you can do it.
Yeah, I couldn't get the ceremony in before I left for basic training.
Yeah. I mean, I saw young men that, and I've counseled a lot of them that were going up for Eagle where their parents wanted it worse than they did, right? Which is a lot of things in life, right? Parents want you to win the championship, wanted this, and you're only in it because they're on you. And we would tell parents, still do to this day, like, if your scout doesn't want this, they're not going to get it. They will find every excuse in the world to toe drag past the
That's
18.
right.
Like, they have to want this. The Eagle Project needs to be something that they are passionate about. There's a lot of work. It's not a project you hand to them and they're like, oh, I'm going to go paint some trash cans or whatever. It has to be something that they have a conviction about and they want to go do, and they're going to put all their heart and soul into it. But if the parents try to hand it to them and try to shove it down their throat, they can find a million and one excuses not to get it done with everything else in the 16, almost 18-year-old range of all the other stuff I talked about that's going on. They don't want it. They're not going to do it. And it's got to be on the scout, right? And that's why 1 in 14 roughly get it, because other ones it isn't the priority like it used to be when they were younger. And then now you throw this in. Dude, this announcement came out the other day about Scouting America. I'm already hearing from people like, I'm done. I'm already hearing from leaders like as upset as you were, that are saying that have no more kids anymore in scouting, and they continue to give their time, effort, and money towards it. They're like, nope, this is the last straw. I'm done.
Well, I got to comment on one thing on that. They have already changed their name back in 2019. Scouting, this is not a new 112 years or whatever it is, since they changed it. They changed it back in 2019. This is a second name change.
Yeah.
Even though the new companies are saying, and then the buyers are saying it's the first in their entire history. It's not.
You're right. They did. Yeah. They just changed it to just BSA, didn't they? They just kind of
something like that. That's correct.
Yeah. Hey, all right. We've been on this topic for a while. We have about 20 minutes left, so we got to hit on some other ones.
Touchy something.
Yeah, we got a lot of stuff here. But it's what happens when you've been gone for a while. So, obviously, just real quick, I want to talk about this. It's been all over the news, so we'll just hit on it, right? This whole Trump trial thing, right? He's in there. Whether you like him or don't or whatever, anyone can look at this and say, it's one thing if they want to give him a gag order and say you can't talk, make threats against the prosecutor or this or that or whatever. You're not allowed to talk about things. But I mean, the limits they put on him with this gag order, where the guy can't even express much less that he's running for president, much less that he's a leading Republican candidate and is projected to probably going to win. As an American citizen, he can't even defend himself against all the salacious things that are coming out being said about him. And everyone just has free reign from his ex-attorney there who's trying to raise money on TikTok to Stormy Daniels talking about his underwear type and stuff. It just astounds me that the American people, regardless if you like him or not, can sit back and just be like, hey, it's not a big deal. It's okay. I mean, he's afforded the same right that every one of us is, that is an American citizen.
Is my microphone?
It was cutting in out a little bit, but I got you.
Okay. Thesis, the guy that started a couple of very large company, the billionaire out of California, he's saying that this is gold for Trump because his numbers have gone way, way up. He's up 5 points in Pennsylvania. He's up in some areas as much as 16 points. He's up 3 points in Michigan. This is turning into gold for him because people are sick and tired of it. They see it for what it is.
Do you think he wants to get arrested? Do you think he wants to go to Rikers?
Well, for one, I don't think the Secret Service are going to let him anywhere near a jail cell or a holding facility. They'll put him in his house and lock him down. That's about the worst he could expect.
A bad place to be from what I've seen of his house. That's a pretty good one. Yeah, I was just wondering because obviously it seems to be that some of the left kind of started to back off of that. But this would be like election gold for him if you did this, right? Because the American people go, wow, if they can do this to him, if we let this abuse of power go unchecked, they could literally do this to every Tom, Dick, and Harry across this nation. Right. Is that kind of stuff. And
it's what every Republican candidate would face for the next generation or two.
Right. Yeah. So it's a shame. I mean, you're watching this happen. I mean, it's charges that don't even exist. And then they bring this Hua in there and she just talks about all this stuff, which has nothing to do with the arrangement of payment or anything. I mean, the case literally looks like there's nothing there, but it will be, but like the last one, I mean, the guy, if you can't find an impartial judge, I mean, these judges, when they come out and they come out day one and pretty much say that they're against you, I don't know how our judicial system can just allow this to happen, and not put check. I mean, justice is not blind anymore. I mean, she's sitting there, got a big D on her head, and she's got her DNC card in her back pocket. I mean, it's amazing. Any more thoughts on that one?
Um, when you say about his trial, which one he's got? Four going on right now. Although the one in Mar-a-Lago about the secret documents, that's gone away for now.
That has definitely gone away for now. The Fannie Willis one, I don't know what's going on with that. The Erdogan, the one with the money, he put the bond up. That's now being. I mean, obviously, the one now is the $130,000 payment for a crime that has fallen outside of statute of limitations, that a state is trying to prosecute for, that was a federal offense that there's not a federal offense on. Yeah, it's I agree. It probably is kicking his numbers way up. I mean, I think it's also, my opinion is more so than what it's doing now for his numbers is, I think, and I've said this before, I think we've talked about it. If he wins and gets in the office, the Dems have zero teeth. There's nothing they can else throw at this guy. They've tried it all, right? Russia, this, that, pig pot dossier, blah, blah, blah. 2 impeachments they tried to do. Now this. I mean, literally, even the most hardcore Democrat, they try to throw something else out. And they're like, real? I mean, you try to throw them off of ballots at the states. The Supreme Court shut that. They've played every single card I think they can play. And even if they have more, I don't think the American people consider it to be valid at all, because it's nonstop. And I think they're doing this just continues to add to the American people just looking at the left going, really? Okay. I don't think there's anything behind this. Because
the cry wolf syndrome.
Oh, that wolf's been cried. Yeah. A long time ago. And flipping on the other side, the Biden administration, the other day, President Biden said, we stand ironclad with Israel. But boy, sure doesn't sound like
more bullets.
Yeah, when you're not going to supply munitions as they try to kill the last of the Hamas terrorists. I mean, what is your thoughts, or what are you hearing from people that look at that and go, this is complete hypocrisy?
Basically, what they're trying to do is prevent Israel from destroying the little puppies of Iran, taking out the leadership that are surviving in Rafah right now. That's basically why he's doing that. It isn't because he has some, leaning to favoritism on Hamas. It's because he's basically been told by Iran, don't touch them. Don't let them be touched. Keep Israel out of their yard. They're not to be harmed. And that's what he's trying to do, is he's trying to, maneuver Netanyahu into a position where he can't act in defense of his own country. But Netanyahu has already come back and said, nope, we got everything we need to go in and take this out. So, okay, you can keep it.
Yeah, I don't see how you can say we're ironclad with them for their defense when you want to stop them or not support them getting rid of the people attacking them. You want to just make them a victim and say, oh, we'll give you defensive, we'll give you shields, and we'll give you, defensive things and barbed wire and all stuff, but we're not going to give you the thing to stop the offense from happening against you. Right. It just is asinine. But then again, I don't think this man that flies on Air Force One has any original thought. I don't think it's coming from him. It comes from whatever they write and tell him to write, and he just reads it. Right. You talk about someone with no conviction. He doesn't believe what he's saying. He doesn't even know what he's saying, but that's a whole other topic. Yeah, I mean, it's looking bad for him, and this is just, everyone's forgot about Ukraine for the most part, except when we send them more billions every single time. But they are paying attention to this, and Israel is winning pretty well.
And it's leading up to these riots. I think the riots are what's driving even more so the American psyche against the Democrats, is because these riots at these universities have just gotten out of control. And I think it's
split the Democratic
Party in the election.
It's split Hollywood, because there's a lot of Jewish people in Hollywood, and it's made a lot of them come out against the Democratic narrative because of this, right? And it's interesting you bring that up. I read a report the other day. I haven't had a chance to dig into it and verify it, but from what I read, the people that have done the following the money on these college protests is all traced back to major donors to the 2020 Biden campaign and the DNC. So by him, it took 13 days for him to come out and speak against the anti-Israeli protests on the college campuses. But literally the people funding him and putting money in his pockets and help get him elected are the ones funding these groups, right?
And
So
I'm surprised that you haven't mentioned that it's the same groups that were funding the Antifa and BLM riots back in 2020.
have they?
I'm
I've heard
surprised that they haven't come out with that one yet.
has that been verified? I've suspected that, but I've heard it.
All you got to do is name the groups. Name the groups that were supporting him back then. It's the same groups that's
Yes, just say
doing
Soros,
the funding.
right? Soros,
Same groups.
yeah. But no, I read a news article this morning that one reporter recognized he was chased by a bunch of he was at one of the campuses. Him and his security also were chased by some of the pro-Palestinian protesters, and they were all dressed up in Antifa black, and he recognized them from the 2020 riots. He recognized the people are the same ones. They're exact same ones. And it's interesting to see how these different campuses, we got about 10 minutes left, different campuses handle it, right? You have some like in Florida and some parts in New York and in Ohio and different places that, man, they're not even letting them think about stepping out of line. They let them peaceful protest, but the second it turns beyond that, they shut it right down, clear them out. And then you have others like UCLA and Columbia who just, and Northeastern and University of Portland that just, cotter to them.
I grew up with these protests. My dad was the National Guard commander in our city, and the anti-Vietnam War riots that went on with Ohio University, we had those every year. I grew up with violent riots. Kent State, his friend who was a battalion commander up at Kent State when that happened. I've seen those, been involved in those where the National Guard was called out. And I haven't seen that at my old university, although they are far more liberal than even they were back then. I have not seen them standing up and starting to protest the way these other universities are.
Well, let me tell you something about the state of Ohio and the Attorney General of the state of Ohio. He has dusted off an old law in the state from the KKK days that says if you're allowed to peaceful protest, but if you protest or do something and there's any kind of violence involved and there's more than two people and they are masked, it is a felony, class D felony in the state of Ohio. And he's catching heck and he's like, it's a law. It's meant for the KKK. And they're going, and it says you can protest, but the second you stop someone from going into a library, block somebody from accessing what they pay for at a college, and to do this, and there's more than two of you and you're masked, you will be arrested and charged because you violate this law that has been around for a very long time. It is a state of Ohio law, and the Attorney General says we will enforce it. It's been on the book since then, hasn't been used, but he said this absolutely qualifies for it because the quote he said is, you're masked, so you're not seen and you're not called out, which means you know what you're doing is wrong and it breaks the law. And that's how they did it.
And that's the difference between the riots back in Vietnam, because they weren't wearing those back then other than to protect themselves from tear gas and the smoke. That's why they were masked, not because they're doing it the way they're doing now to hide their identity. COVID be damned. They can wear all those kind of masks that they want, but that's not why they're wearing them.
It's amazing they wear masks for COVID, but they all pile into tents that are, shoulder to shoulder, and they all look alike too. Yeah, a good friend of mine said it's an organization called Tide, which is Soros funded. It's called Tide, which is the one that's behind a lot of this. Who's apparently being sued by BLM for millions because I guess they didn't get more. They needed more money, but no, I mean it's so Ohio's doing that. Florida is like, this ain't daycare. If you break the rule, you're out. I can tell you a certain university in New York arrested about 30 and they immediately expelled them. And there are parents freaking out because their kids are going to graduate this year. And they're like, nope, they're expelled and they can't even come back on campus to get their stuff. They can arrange with friends or suite mates or their family to go get their stuff out of the dorms. They're not even allowed on. They gave them and no trespassing rules. And that's a college in New York. So there are some out there that are not playing around. And then there's others that we just want to be on the news every night. I saw in Netherlands, they're having this in Europe too. The Netherlands brought in a bulldozer and drove it right into the encampment and said, you can leave now. And they bulldozed up all the tents, all the everything.
I'll bring the skid steer. No problem.
I think
You
our
know,
friend Chuck is working on a bulldozer. I mean, we could, get him to bring that one, but um, we'll call that Kilo Delta 2. But yeah, so, but yeah, it's in Netherlands. They're not messing around either.
wow, I had not heard about that one yet.
Yeah, it's but obviously why? Because the left isn't media is not going to talk about it for sure. You're not going to see that carried, but yeah, but it seems to be quieting down now. Um, you know, the little kids had the little temper tantrums, and now
Because the graduations are going on. They're all graduated now, so they're supposed to be leaving campus. That's the only reason it's dying down.
well, they are because the agitators are 30, 40 years old and they got nothing else to do. But when all their little pawns aren't there because they gotta get their cap and gowns on. For those that don't get expelled, yeah, it'll probably turn into a quiet summer, right?
Oh no, 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 no.
Well,
no, this is just an indicator of what Chicago is going to be. Was it come August for the Dems? This
yeah,
is Summer '68 all over again, in
yeah.
my estimation.
Well, between that and who their candidate's going to be, I could see them wanting to go all remote and online, just one big Zoom ass freaking DNC convention. Because
You think they're going to chicken out and not have the big thing that they're going to do it online? They do it digitally.
COVID. They did
What's that?
They did it during 2020.
Yeah, but they've got the reservations and they're making their plans and preparations for the big Chicago blowout. So that would be interesting if they think, oh, we're under threats, or there's violence, we're going to move it online.
If it doesn't become a brokered convention and Biden ends up being the actual candidate, I mean, can you see him? I mean, it just, yeah, I mean, I don't know.
That's an interesting discussion point. That's very good.
That could be for another show, but but yeah, I mean, it's but yeah, all the instigators and professional agitators will all probably be flown into to Chicago for that. But they are definitely coming out. But it's interesting too to see the amount of anti-Biden sentiment come in. You saw what happened at the University of Alabama, right? They joked that Biden did bring people together because the anti-Israel protesters and the pro-Israel protesters all got together to chant "F Joe Biden," and did that in unison and on key. So they didn't even say "Let's go, Brandon." So it was both sides started chanting it. And one thing that you've seen is, I mean, at GW University, they put his face on that big American flag and called him Genocide Joe, and he is losing the college vote because of this. I mean,
and they don't know what they're even talking about. They have no idea why they're supporting Hamas or the Palestine thing. They just think they're supporting people to have their own country. They don't realize what the rest of the story is.
Yeah, the man on the street interviews where these journalists go out there and ask them. They don't know. They're like, I don't know. We go to a different school, or we just told we need to do the. Yeah, they don't. They couldn't even identify Gaza on a map of the world if you focused on the Middle East. They wouldn't be able to do it, right? I mean,
that's true.
So yeah, they don't know why they're out there, and they're just doing it because they're in college, and a lot of their cerebral cortex isn't fully formed yet until they're 26. So a lot of them are just freaking whiny brat retards that are out there, just doing whatever their friends are doing. Like, dude, let's fire up a fatty and go down and protest. And it's like,
they've got some great weed down here in Tent City, man. Let's go on down.
Get a free tent, and yeah, you don't have to shower, but what's this for? I don't know. The cops are coming in. F the pigs, and yeah, it's what it is. It's like every bad 80s college movie. It's like, Spicoli's out there with rolling up in his.
This is not Animal House. This is not Animal House.
No. I went Fast Times at Ridgemont High, but I'm glad you took it back to Animal House. A better movie. Both are good. But yeah, this is all a whole bunch of people. Spicoli's telling Mr. Hand to F off and bring the pizza in, or smash the guitar in the hallway like Animal House, and everyone's on double secret probation. But yeah, so anyways, we got a couple minutes left, man. We covered a few topics. We covered some good ones. Anything else that you want to just leave with our listeners and viewers? We had a good audience tonight.
The one thing that I would like to bring up is the economy. It's the economy, stupid. And I think this is something that doesn't get as much coverage as it should for obvious reasons. I know the jobs report was terrible. The inflation has been astronomically bad compared to what it was, 4 years ago. I'm always curious how bad is it really getting out there? Because I see so many indications. I went to the store today, and stuff that was $5 or $4.99 a couple of years ago is now $7.99. Packaged ham, that kind of stuff. And it's ridiculous just how much some of these staple goods have gone up. And it's very noticeable. And it's for obvious reasons. And I can't understand why people are even more upset than they are.
Yeah, eventually the pocketbooks were going to be. We have 5 seconds left. Look, what you need to do is you got to vote in November. I'm not saying vote for Trump. Vote for anybody but Biden. Just be anyone you want, but not them. So with that being said, thank you so much for joining us here, episode 331. Thank you, Wolf. And thanks, everyone. Great to be back. Thank you all. Stay tuned in. Like us on all of our socials. And I'm doing my best to get more stuff out there. So everybody have a good night. Mr. Wolf, thank you very much, buddy. You have a good weekend.
Thank you, sir.